Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody tuning in here today to our Life Sciences webinar hosted by the Holland Network, Scribes tax lawyers, Genome lawyers, and JPP Life Sciences and Marketing. We're very excited to have you all here today. Welcome to this session where we're going to talk about life sciences opportunities in the Netherlands, specifically in the biotech and the cell and gene space. Before I continue my presentation, I'm just going to start a quick poll that's going to ask you guys about your experience with the Netherlands and if you're looking to set up a business there or if you have any experience already. So please feel free to fill that out. As we continue, there you can see it, the Netherlands, your place to accelerate your business. Maybe a little bit of background about us, the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency and the Holland Network before we kick things off here. So we are the designated investment promotion agency for the Netherlands, for the Dutch government. We're directly a part of the Dutch Department of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy, and it is our mission to help foreign companies that are looking to expand to the Netherlands with supporting them. And the second most pillar of our work is supporting companies that have already established in the Netherlands. We do so through a very extensive team and an extensive network. As you can see, about 26 offices abroad, with close to 140 people worldwide, where we also work closely together with the Dutch embassies and the consulate generals in various countries. An important component of our network is the Holland Network, which consists of our regional partners on the ground in the Netherlands, where we work together closely with 12 of our regional partners in helping companies land successfully in the Netherlands and continuing to provide support to those that have already established there. Now, as the results for the polls are coming in on how familiar are you with the Netherlands, some of you have indicated I already have a business there, some people are considering the Netherlands, and others are exploring their options. So this is why we included a little bit of a chart to give you a good understanding of where we are as a country and why we're so attractive to companies. One of the main reasons, as you can see, is our strategic location to serve the European market. A lot of companies tend to use the Netherlands as a springboard to enter the European market, and several factors contribute to that. As you can see, our highly skilled, productive, and multilingual workforce is a key attractive factor for companies that are considering the Netherlands and want to set up shop there. Others include an exceptional quality of life, a very internationally focused business climate, excellent logistics infrastructure and technology, an innovation-friendly business climate, and a reliable regulatory environment as well. As we continue, I wanted to give you a quick roundabout of who we have as speakers here today, aside from me as your moderator. First off, we're going to hear from Jan Zuidma of the Holland Network, a deep dive into the cell and gene and biotech space in the Netherlands and what it has to offer. Then Gunar from Scribes tax lawyers is going to elaborate on what it takes to set up your business in the Netherlands. Then Hanneke Later-Nijland will elaborate on regulations within the European Union and the Netherlands and what to look out for. And lastly, we'll hear from the source, a great story from Mr. Maurits Geerlings and Nanocell Therapeutics on their journey on deciding for the Netherlands and what it took to come here and what were the deciding factors. Before we continue, now we'd like to present you a quick video on why the Netherlands is Europe's connected life sciences hub. Now, before we kick things off with Jan, just a few household notes. You'll be able to ask questions to all the speakers respectively in the chat, and we'll make sure we'll try to get that to answer for you while the presentations are going on. There's also room for additional questions at the end, So if you have something you want to ask later on, feel free to save that for us. And then last but most importantly is that the webinar will be recorded and we'll share the recordings afterwards. And hereby I would like to now give the floor to Mr. Jan Zuidema for Invest in Holland. Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tim. Could we have the presentation in place, please? Thank you. Well, opening sheet. Well, how can you beat the short video movie, right? So I'll try to educate you a bit about biotech in the Netherlands, and a bit more in detail on regenerative medicine. But obviously there's a lot to tell, and I will be sticking to the main items. But obviously more details can be shared in the chat, and we can answer them. So yeah, this is the picture you saw already. So we see the Netherlands as let's say one big metropolis of connections. If you look at the sheer size of the country, that is not such rocket science to think about that. So I was explained the Netherlands, you can travel from east to west in 2 hours and from north to south in 3. There are major cities where that takes a lot longer. And it also says something about the connectiveness of the researchers, but also with the companies, with all sorts of institutions, with all sorts of facilities. So we have the orange line depicts the academic medical centers in the Netherlands. You see they are a bit far apart if you look at it in this way, but they can be traveled between 1 and 1.5 hours from each other, and there's a lot of collaborations going on as well. So there's a number of these here. I invite you to look a bit more deeper in here, but these are the lines of the major university centers, the technical universities, and some other facilities. So next one. Why would you be in the Netherlands? Well, I think the healthcare system is not only robust in the Netherlands, but it's also one of the highest value healthcare systems in the world. I think we always come number 1 or 2 when that is being tested again. As Tim indicated, into Europe, the Netherlands is a very logical way with the major ports, so airports, but also the bigger ports in Rotterdam, obviously, and a very great a logistic connection to the backland into Germany and France and stuff like that. We are pretty good for such a small country in R&D, or very high numbers in impact papers, and there's a lot of public-private partnerships where academics and companies and government work together and jointly not only facilitate research, but also finance research. If you're going to set up shop in the Netherlands, you're not going to be the first one. Luckily, there's a lot of bigger and smaller companies that have made decisions like that. There's a lot of companies that have made second and third decisions to expand in the Netherlands. And here's just a handful of companies that, well, if you're in the business, you'll understand the names and you see what has happened there. And it's always better to have somebody else tell your story for you. That's why we use this quote from Veronique from BMS Benelux to say something about how happy they are to be here in the Netherlands. If you look at the Invest in Holland Life Science and Health page, you see a lot of these sort of testimonials from major companies and for smaller companies, because we cater to the needs of the companies. So some companies need a lot of help, some companies do not need a lot of help, and we adapt to that. Well, it's a part of a growing community, and I think it was always pretty good to work in life sciences in the Netherlands, and become only better with the European Medicine Agency relocating to the Netherlands a few years back. But there's a lot of new companies starting up, number of university medical centers, universities, talent, a lot of talent in that are either employed already in the pharmaceutical sector or just being educated in and around the major science parks in the Netherlands. Okay, then something more zooming in regenerative medicine. So we have this organization called RegMedXB, or Regenerative Medicine Crossing Borders. The crossing border part is a Belgium region that is also part of this collaboration. Basically, what it is a collaboration between a number of regions, academic centers, and government to challenge the big unanswered questions in regenerative medicine. So they are also looking into working on a number of moonshot initiatives, like trying to produce the first artificial kidney. So that's the sort of things that are going on in there. And what is interesting is that there's a number of new facilities that have been set up. So there's a number of interesting pilot facilities that are basically set up to accelerate the use of regenerative medicine and to bring it quicker to the patients. Well, what do you need if you're into a cell or gene therapy or into 3D bioprinting? Obviously, what you need to be able to do is to scale and to also manufacture on clinical level. Well, the facilities, the pilot facilities of RegMedXB have been set up to do just that. And the pilot facilities are all open for collaboration with foreign researchers, but also with foreign companies. So it's not just open for companies from the Netherlands itself. Okay, well, there are four centers. I'll just go through them very quickly. NextGen Center in Leiden is into the cell and gene manufacturing. They try to accelerate therapies. As I said, they are open for partners, and they will act as a hub. Won't go into too much details with all these facilities here. In Utrecht, we have the Innovation Center for Advanced Therapies, also to improve and accelerate translation of research. So also working on gene and cell therapy and biofabrication, so 3D bioprinting. And basically what they are trying to do there is do simulation, but also smaller scale manufacturing on a GMP level. Then we move more into the biomaterials. So in Eindhoven, associated with the Technical University Eindhoven, is a smart biomaterials consortium, developing high quality infrastructure, manufacturing, and that is that organization, the Smart Biomaterials Consortium, is set up by the Technical University of Eindhoven in collaboration with a number of companies and other facilities. And then the last but not least is Region Biomedical. They're based out of Maastricht in the ultimate southern point of the Netherlands. And they are assembling microtissues with to functional macrotissues. So basically, they use the biomaterials and scale it up to actually useful patient materials that can be used towards patient adherence. And they also have pilot facilities and are working now, let's say, as with the tooling that can be used for companies that really want to work in this particular field. So I think that more or less concludes my part of the presentation. I know it's a bit high level, but there's not too much time that we have here. So I'll be happy to go into a bit more a bit deeper level based on the questions that you provide.
Wonderful, thank you, Jan. Thank you for this overview. I think it's been a very insightful kind of helicopter view of what's available in the Netherlands, looking at the partner facilities and opportunities there. And yeah, we can definitely dive into things a little bit deeper during the Q&A. Wonderful. Next up, I would like to give the floor to Gunar Gijsbrechts from Scribes Tax Lawyers, who's going to give you a bit better of an understanding of the roadmap of setting up your business in the Netherlands, what to look out for, and what they can help with. Gunar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tim. Welcome, everybody. The next 10 minutes, I would like to dive into the Dutch tax system to expand your company to the Netherlands. And I would like to discuss the main feature and benefits of the Dutch tax system. So maybe just very high level, why would the Dutch tax system be facilitating the expansion of your company to the Netherlands? Well, historically, the economy of the Netherlands has been a very open one. So we have been concluding a lot of tax treaties with other countries. So whether you are a company that would like to be involved in R&D research in the Netherlands, or whether you will have a company that will function as a regional headquarters, those different tax treaties are a great help to start up your business in the Netherlands. Main features, what kind of things make that the Dutch tax system could help the expansion of your company. We have a participation exemption and also an object exemption. So if you are a Dutch company and you have foreign subsidiaries, or you are within a corporate structure, any gains from the sale or dividends that you receive from subsidiaries are tax exempt, therefore making sure that the same profit is not taxed twice within the same group of companies. Also, we do not have a withholding tax on interest and royalties that are paid to other parties. And we have a couple of R&D facilities, one in the wage taxes and one in the corporate income tax, which I will elaborate on in the next part of my presentation. Also, for bigger companies that have a main office, for example, in the US or maybe in Asia, if you report to the main office in a certain currencies, such as US dollars, it is possible to draft your financial statement as well as file your corporate income tax return in the same currency as your headquarters, making sure that it is much easier to report within the group, so not having to deal with foreign exchange problems. If you choose to expand by taking over a company, so buying shares or maybe making an exit in the Netherlands, stamp duties on sale or acquisition of shares is not applicable. And also we have a very open tax authorities, so they're very easy to approach. So contact with the tax authorities about the explanation of certain parts of legislation, it is possible to get an upfront approval or to discuss your transfer pricing system with the local inspector. So as I said, there are two different ways of expanding your company, also depending on your corporate strategy. The first one is to buy a company in the Netherlands, but the alternative, of course, is to start with a blank sheet and to start a organization in the Netherlands. If you want to choose to start a new company in the Netherlands, and you incorporate a limited liability company, which is the main body which is used to set up corporate structures, it is important to acknowledge that the tax residency of that company is determined by the place of the effective management. If a company is incorporated in the Netherlands, it is deemed to be resident for Dutch corporate tax. But in practice, we use substance requirements such as where is the bank account in the Netherlands? Do you have an accountant helping you with your financial statements? But also, where is the main body that takes the decisions for the company, such as the board of directors? And that board should always be for at least 50% be Dutch working and living persons over here. So why is this important? This is important if you are trying to apply a benefit based on tax treaties or maybe EU tax directive. It is important that you are considered a tax resident in the Netherlands, so you are able to apply those benefits in that particular situation. In September, the latest budget was announced for 2024, and the main tax rates were announced for 2024, and the first level of taxation is 90% up to 200,000 euros of profit, and above that number it is 25.8. And for companies that are resident in the Netherlands, they are taxed based on their worldwide income. And if you are not active in the Netherlands with a limited liability company or a similar company, so your parent company maybe has a tax registration here in the Netherlands and renting an office, then you are considered a permanent establishment, and your income that is applicable to corporate income tax is only based on Dutch source income. Of course, if you're starting up a business, maybe you expect tax losses, maybe for the first years. So tax losses can be offset with a profit going 1 year back, so carry back loss compensation. And in 2022, the carry forward period has been abolished, so tax losses can be offset against future profits for an indefinite period of time. But at the same time, they announced a limitation on the amount of carry forward of losses, and in 1 year, at least 1 million can be offset, and only 50% of the profit above 1 million. Well, as the Netherlands is part of the European Union and also a member of the OECD, transfer pricing rules are applicable, and the at arm's length principle based on the OECD guidelines is also embodied in Dutch tax law. So when is this applicable? Basically, for every company that is active in the Netherlands and is part of a bigger group, you should have documentation available to substantiate your internal pricing between group companies. If you are part of a mid-sized group, so with an annual turnover of 50 million euros on an annual basis, then additional transfer pricing documentation should be drafted, and that exists from a master file and also a local file. The master file describing more or less the outlaying of the entire company, and the local file contains information about the transactions with other group companies. And for larger companies with an annual turnover of more than 750 million euros, mostly listed companies, besides the master file and local file, there's also an obligation to draft a country-by-country report, and that country report is also shared with foreign tax authorities. What we see lately is that a lot of R&D teams are also scattered around different countries. So in various situations, we see that based on transfer pricing legislation, the profit is split and is allocated to the different parts of the development process, and therefore income that can be connected to that part of the development is then part of the tax basis for that company. And as I said before, if you have questions about how to implement a particular part of the of your transfer pricing system, or you would like to have an upfront approval, it is possible to approach the Dutch tax authorities and to get an approval on the overall system for transfer pricing. Yeah, I think for a lot of life science businesses, of course, at some part of the company, you are involved or you have experiences with R&D development. And somewhere in 2013, the Dutch legislator introduced an innovation box. So if a company is performing R&D activities in-house, so in this case in the Dutch company, then part of that income that is connected to the R&D process can be taxed against a lower tax rate of 9%. Of course, there are a couple of criteria to be able to apply that lower rate to R&D income. And the first one, which is also a second R&D facility, is a so-called WBSO declaration or a R&D certificate. This is basically a certificate that you can receive from the Dutch government by engaging in a R&D program to develop or to find a problem for a technical challenge for that particular company. So it doesn't have to be an idea that maybe also is part of the R&D program of another company. It should be something that is new or forms a technical challenge for that particular company. So if you receive that R&D certificate, basically you have access to the innovation box. Then you can apply a request to the tax authorities about what kind of percentage of the overall profit that can be connected to these R&D activities can be that lower tax rate of the Corporate Income Tax Act can be applied. And in practice, you come to agreement with the tax authorities for the average duration of 3 years. And if you have a particular R&D development and that will go on in the future, it's also possible to extend that particular agreement with the tax authorities. So why is this R&D certificate also very handy? That's handy because it will provide in a additional stimulation, but then for the people that are part of the R&D staff. So you get a reduction of the wage taxes on a monthly basis, and it's based on the amount of hours you spend on a particular project, with a minimum of 500 hours per year. But basically, there's no limitation on the amount of hours that can be spent on this WBSO developments. So this will also support your cash flow within the company, and there are basically 4 different time periods to apply for different projects within the R&D certificate. If you hire very high-skilled people within your company, the Netherlands has also introduced a 30% ruling. So if that staff is outside of 150 kilometers of the Netherlands, then it's possible to get a reduction in applicable wage taxes for instance, for costs that are related to moving over to the Netherlands, as well as traveling costs. So it's an extra stimulus to hire very high-skilled staff members. And then in M&A transactions, we see a lot of employee incentives, and also to make sure that your team can develop within the future. So the Netherlands has got different ways of incentives by way of stock options or maybe stock appreciation rights. Withholding taxes. So if you are a Dutch company and you would like to distribute a dividend to your foreign shareholder, in principle, 50% dividend withholding tax is applicable. But if the participation exemption, so at least 5% of the shares in the Dutch company is being held by your foreign shareholder, you get a reduction based on the Dutch withholding tax legislation. And only the 15% is applicable in case of abuse situations. Yeah, and then as I told in the first slide, we basically do not have any withholding tax on interest or royalties that are being paid to foreign shareholders. But recently a conditional withholding tax was introduced, and that's applicable in abuse situations or if a royalty or interest is being paid to a country which is blacklisted. So those are, it's a limited list of companies. So in most cases, this won't be applicable. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Gunar. Thank you for your valuable insights. Very interesting. Thank you also for the questions in chat from Anna and Matthijs. We'll get to that later, looking at the time. So I'd like to now give the floor to Hanneke from Genome Lawyers. She's going to talk about the regulations and the landscape like that in Europe. Hanneke, please take it away.
Yes, sure. Very nice to be here. It's unfortunate that we cannot see each other. It's always nice to see a few faces, but I have to do it with these 4 faces, which is nice as well. So I would like to talk a little bit about the regulations in the EU that we have, and also to put the Netherlands a little bit more in the perspective, as I can imagine when you're from the US or from Japan, perhaps, then you probably wonder how it all works out. And maybe a little bit about myself. I am quite an atypical lawyer, as I'm also trained as a pharmacist. So I'm non-practicing, obviously. I'm practicing as a lawyer, but I am a pharmacist. I also teach pharmaceutical law at the University of Leiden. And that makes me very connected also still with the academic world. I'm also a former inspector for healthcare. And last year I set up, and perhaps that's relevant, that's why I'm mentioning it. So I've set up last year a global network of regulatory and corporate lawyers really focused on life sciences, with a view to advancing life sciences transactions. But of course, these regulatory lawyers, they are everywhere and they know the local legislation. So if you want to say, well, I want to have my HQ in, let's say, Amsterdam, and I want to know more about the legislation in France or Belgium or Germany, then, well, I have this network of relevant lawyers. So then to go into the big picture, let's say, so how are we in the Netherlands organized, let's say legally? Of course, we are in the EU, so our legislation comes from the European Commission, and that's all being, and then it goes to the European Parliament and Council. Basically, we have 2 very important laws coming from the EU, types of laws, let's say. One is the regulation, and that is something that applies immediately in all the member states, so we call it MS. So there's no implementation needed into national local law. On the contrary, we also have directives, and those need to be implemented in each member state. So when we talk about medicinal products, then there is we have a regulation, so that's immediately implemented, but that's quite high level. If we go into more specifics, then we have the Medicines Directive, I always call it, and the Medicines Directive needs to be implemented. So in the Netherlands, we have the Dutch Medicines Act, and in Germany, we have the German equivalent. Of course, I don't know from what side of the life sciences spectrum you are. So I thought, let's do it very high level. So if we speak about life sciences, we usually speak about medicinal products and medical devices, to put it broadly. And then medicinal products you can divide up to small molecules. That's sort of the older medicinal products, really the paracetamol, aspirin, and so on. And we also have more the biotech products. So let's talk about for instance, the antibodies, the ATMPs, so which I will go into a little bit more depth. And we also have the medical devices, and that's more of a it's more varied spectrum of products, really, because it really goes from very simple medical devices, from plasters, to apnea devices, of which we've heard a lot recently again, but also breast and hip implants, and even CT scanners. So it's really a very wide array of products, and yet they are all regulated by the same legislation. And there has been quite a change, or actually it's been going on. So for years we've had the Medical Devices Directive. So it needed to be implemented in each member state. And since May, there is a medical devices regulation in force, since May 21, that is. So that's that for medical devices. And then I was asked to talk a little bit more specifically about ATMPs. So these are advanced therapeutic medicinal products. So it falls under the category medicinal products, absolutely, but they're more advanced. So we have three types, really. So the first are somatic cell therapy. So these are cells or tissues that have been modified to change their biological characteristics, or cells or tissues that are not intended to be used for the same essential functions as they originally do. Then we have gene therapy. That really speaks for itself, actually. So it contains genes that lead to some therapeutic or prophylactic or effect. And then lastly, and that's maybe the most concrete one, so it's tissue engineered products. So these are modified cells or tissue with a view to repair or regenerate tissues. So you can think of bone regenerating products. And then sometimes the products are even more complicated. So sometimes there's even a sort of scaffold, and then the scaffold is again a medical device. And then together it's called a combined ATMP. So there are variations possible, but these are really the ATMPs. And imagine you would come to the Netherlands with the view of manufacturing ATMPs in the Netherlands. Then there are a few opportunities, there are challenges. To start with the opportunities, so first, it's very important to know, and I think if that's the one thing you should remember from my slides, that is that ATMPs are mandatory to go via the centralized procedure. So you cannot say, I just want to start in Germany first, because that's a very big country. But no, for ATMPs, you have to do it via the centralized procedure. And that means you have to go to the EMA, and the EMA is, of course, based in Amsterdam, actually right behind my office. The EMA also, so that's the European Medicines Agency, obviously. It provides scientific support to help design pharmacovigilance and risk management systems used to monitor the safety of ATMP. So pharmacovigilance is actually what you do after you have launched your product on the market. So it comes from the Latin vigilare. So after you've put it on the market, the product, you have still, of course, you have to monitor all the adverse events that would still come up. Because beforehand, before you place it on the market, before you've obtained your marketing authorization, you must have done quite a few clinical trials, but still that is always, a certain number of people, but never as big as when you really put it out there. So that's why it's important to also, after you've put your medicinal product on the market, you need to do something about pharmacovigilance. That's really obliged. It all comes from the European legislation that we have. Another opportunity is that there is support for SMEs. but you need to be sort of valid SME. So there are certain criteria. But then for those SMEs, so small, medium enterprises, there are some fee reductions applicable. So for the scientific advice, and that means that you can just have meetings with the EMA in the sense that they really help you what studies to set up and other practical help. And I believe there's actually even a team that's being dedicated, maybe not dedicated, but dedicated not to you only, but dedicated to this group of companies. And also there is support for the marketing authorization application. And this also concerns financial reports. So in some cases, and that's mostly also focused on orphan medicinal products, then those fee reductions could be up to 100%. And it also concerns variations, so things that you have to change after you have already obtained your marketing authorization. And it also concerns consultations on medical devices. And there's also something a little bit new, and that's the ATMP Academic Development Support Pilot. So if you are more in the academic development environment, then that could also be very helpful. And as we said, as Jan Zuidema in the beginning already said, we have quite a few, I think, very well-functioning academic centers in the Netherlands, and I think they're more and more willing also to work together with companies. So I think that's an extremely good development. I'm really very much cheering that. Then we have some challenges, and what I hear from clients or from companies that are actually coming from, let's say, the US to the Netherlands, that the first and most important questions for them is actually where and how to start when manufacturing ATMPs, or your wish, when you have this wish to start manufacturing ATMPs in the Netherlands. I try to make this a little bit more easy for you. What I think is very important is, first of all, to find suitable premises and also the essential personnel. So some personnel is actually required to have pursuant to European legislation, such as qualified persons. And I think it's very important to start with them, because they will know how to set up. For instance, you have a qualified person for GMP, for good manufacturing practice. And they will also start to, they will understand that you will need a manufacturing authorization, for instance. And that is something, that is really an authorization to be able to start manufacturing. And of course, you need to have the ATMPs and the dossier ready. If we speak about ATMPs, then very often we also speak about cells and tissues. And then there is an act called Safety and Quality Body Material. So it's a Dutch act, but it's actually also based on European legislation. But then you will also need to understand the concepts of tissue institution and organ bank, because then it could be about the cells that have to be that need to be used for the medicinal product itself. So another important question to know is where are those cells originating from. And even though we are a small country, actually there are quite a few agencies that are involved in starting here. And that is, for instance, the Ministry of Healthcare, of course. Then there is the Inspectorate for Healthcare. So if you would be inspected by the Ministry of Healthcare before you actually you start with your manufacturing authorization, setting everything up, then it could be the Inspectorate for Healthcare that is going to inspect you. And this seems like a different agency, but actually it falls right under the Ministry of Health. So if you have a problem with them, so that's what I do a lot as a lawyer, then actually the other party is the Ministry of Healthcare. The Inspectorate for Healthcare itself is really a part of the ministry. For the marketing authorizations, obviously you need the EMA. And for studies, etc., you need the institutional review boards, ethical committees, and there is another body on top of that, and that's called the CCMO. I'm going to be very quick because I see that my time is running out. So actually, what I already said, you need also certain personnel, for instance, the qualified persons, but also in the context of the tissues and cells, perhaps you need the responsible person. And that's, of course, really important. Recently, I have just started something else next to my law firm, in which we try to connect the right people, let's say general counsels, regulatory affairs managers, but also executives and people who really help scale-ups to expand further. So yeah, you can reach out if you need any of those people. And this is another initiative that I have with 2 other lawyers in the European Union. So it's an Italian lawyer, Francesca, and Monica is from Austria, and together we make some sort of golden gate from the US to Europe to help companies and to provide them the reference they need. For instance, if they need a tax lawyer, then you would go to Gunar. That's actually what I wanted to tell you. And if you have any questions, really feel free to reach out, and I would be happy to set up a call if you have further concrete questions. Thank you.
Wonderful, Hanneke. Thank you for the very enthusiastic and exciting presentation and for all your valuable insights. Appreciate it. Now for the last part of our webinar, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Maurits Geerlings from Nanocell Therapeutics. And he's going to talk a little bit about his decision-making process, what he looked at for the Netherlands, and what his experience has been so far. So Maurits, please take it away.
Hi, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, good. So I'm originally from the Netherlands, studied medicine in Utrecht, and about 30 years ago transferred to the US and became a serial entrepreneur in life sciences, coming first from research at Sloan Kettering, and started my first company in the radioimmunotherapy space. Company went ultimately public, but prior to that, I transitioned into the industry doing business development, corporate development, and learned the art of transactioning in life sciences and business building. Then in 2010, I founded a company, Formula Pharma, that ultimately became a cell and gene therapy company, and with an allogeneic CAR-T platform. Sold the company in 2020. In the meantime, co-founded 2 other companies. One of them is in the pain gene therapy arena. The other one is a molecular biology focused company, both privately financed. And then after selling after selling Formula Pharma, I started Nanocell with a vision to really help drive the cell and gene therapy space into a new frontier of gene therapy. So what we do within Nanocell is develop a non-viral DNA-based in vivo gene therapy, and that means we deliver a drug by way of a lipid nanoparticle that contains DNA, and we target the lipid nanoparticle to T cells at the beginning, and then have technology that helps integrate that DNA stably into the target cell, and thereby generate CAR-T, chimeric antigen T-cell receptor therapy in the patient without the need for ex vivo manufacturing. So for those that are in that field, I hope it resonates a bit. Otherwise, there's a lot of mumbo-jumbo technical side. But I'm here to tell more about why do we operate in the Netherlands, because we started in the US. I'm still living in the US, but commute a lot to the Netherlands. And that was essentially, I was looking to find a place with a lot of capabilities that fit our scientific disciplines. And so we combine molecular biology with cell and gene therapy, with nanomedicine, lipids technology, also immunology and protein sciences. And so that requires specialized equipment, that requires talent, and also specialized lab facilities. So as a startup company, you can imagine that it is impossible to have the funding available to invest in capital expenditures. So you need to have access to lab facilities that are typically academically organized. And within the US, I've been looking into UPenn because I live in Pennsylvania. I looked even into Boston and Houston and different hubs, but all became clear that the tax laws do not allow private companies to have their employees operate in government-funded labs, at least not if you're not a spin-out of an academic institution that has a lot of equity involved. So therefore, I went to Europe because the tax laws are different, and as such, did a search in different hubs in Berlin, Milan, Munich, Leuven, Ghent, and gradually landed in the Netherlands because I never looked into my backyard. Passed through Leiden, and then in Utrecht, lo and behold, my alma mater, I found what I was looking for. And I look at Utrecht as basically the Netherlands, because it so happened that I found in the Utrecht Life Science Park, in this walking vicinity, all the different disciplines, departments, academic departments that were organized in a geographical manner that makes it just very easy for us to do what we need to do. So landing in the Netherlands, I found basically a few important points of differentiation that were hard to find elsewhere, and that is the collaborative culture of different academic institutions, and even within academia, the collaborative culture of different departments. Whereas in the US, for instance, I found that each department required a separate negotiation, a separate business engagement, whereas in the Netherlands, I found that with one representative office, you had essentially an umbrella representation for all these departments. And from a cultural perspective, it was really important that there was not a siloed mentality, but rather, what can I do to be part of it? What can I do to help? And that has facilitated an engagement where my company could partner with the university at large and have our employees use the lab facilities under business terms that are financeable, that were attractive to venture capital and also prospective partners, strategic partners, where all the IP that was generated flows back into the company, and where the academic institution benefits from access to our technology for future publication purposes, but all with the business context in mind. We found it very easy to recruit people also from other countries where it was a very specific expertise or specific people that we were looking to retain. It was not difficult to get people to move from various countries such as Portugal or Germany, even India. And I'd say in general, there was so much welcoming of us within also Health Holland. I have to say that all in all, it was a very positive and smooth experience. From a broader business perspective, how do we grow our company? I see a lot of complementarity with what we will then in the future do in the US. There is already a bridge between the Netherlands and Mass Bio, for instance. So all in all, I found it a very positive experience to pick the Netherlands as our domicile for R&D, but also as a business to further grow. I think I covered pretty much the points, but I'm sure you have questions.
That was perfect, Maurits. Thank you so much for telling us your story and how NanoCell ended up in the Netherlands. I think it was very insightful to learn from the horse's mouth kind of what your experience was. You know, as the Invest in Holland network, we all try to advocate for the Netherlands, but nothing beats hearing it from someone that actually went down the path. So thank you very much for your presentation. Like Maurits said, we'd like to now open the floor for any further questions that you guys might have for the speakers. I think Gunar already answered a few questions in the chat. But if you have any other questions for either Hanneke, Jan, Gunar, or Maurits, please feel free to fire away. And I think we have something coming in. Give me 1 second. When would a company classify as a valid SME? Hanneke, can I direct this to you?
Yes, sure. So, so the valid SME, I have to do it from the top of my head, but I believe you need to have less than 250 employees. And I also believe that turnover should be under 15 million or something like that. So it's not perhaps not too difficult, but there are more criteria, but I think those are quite important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. And let's see, what else do we have here? This is probably for you, Gunar. What are the most critical tax compliance and reporting obligations for smaller businesses in the Netherlands? So scale-up startups.
In terms of compliance, that will be the annual corporate income tax return, the monthly wage tax returns in case you have a staff on the payroll, and VAT returns are being filed quarterly. That's standard. Or if the amount of turnover has become bigger, or you have a continuous refund, then you can ask for a monthly filing.
Perfect.
And and then you have financial statements, and those need to be filed once a year with the Dutch Chamber of Commerce. But basically, the compliance standards are quite comprehensive.
Okay. Another one on the farmer reform package. Hanneke, this sounds like it's a little bit more up your alley. Is it something you could elaborate a little bit on? What this?
Yeah. Yeah, so the pharma reform was published somewhere before the summer, I believe. I don't recall. So the idea is there are some measures that really have an impact on, for instance, reducing the multi-drug resistance. So especially when you're working on medicinal products that have an impact on resistance, that is very much benefited, let's say. And there is also, they really want to have a larger availability of medicinal products. So, and also it's encouraged that medicinal products are also tested for the pediatric population. What is a very important one, but I'm not sure it will stay the same, because I think there will be a lot of lobbying. The rules that are about the duration of the market exclusivity, which is of course extremely important for medicinal product, market exclusivity, these will be a little bit changed. And they will very much be focused on a high unmet medical need. So normally we speak about an unmet medical need, and now there's a sort of additional, an extra category of high unmet medical need, and you need to qualify for that. But honestly, I'm not sure if it will all stay the same, because of course it needs a lot of assessments still. But so there are some changes coming up as to these aspects. What they also want is to simplify the market entry for generics and biosimilars.
Great, thank you. One more question from Prakash. This is probably for you, Gunar, as it's about taxation and incentives. Are there any specific subsidies or incentives available for manufacturing companies in the life science sector?
Yeah, actually, there's quite a broad spectrum of different subsidies and incentives. Also, funding arrangements are applicable. But I guess this will also be something to discuss with your organization, Tim, as well as with the local scientific parks where there are regional investment facilities that could help with the setup of the company.
Yeah, good point, Gunar. I think Prakash, like Gunar already said, there's some possibilities on a local level in terms of specifically focusing on manufacturing. It's a little bit more difficult to say on what would be available. It could be depending on a case-by-case basis. So if you want, we'll happily connect with you after this webinar to further discuss this. I can say that there are additional incentives available for R&D activities, as Gunar elaborated on before. So if that's a part of what you're planning to set up in the Netherlands, you would be eligible for that. And there are additional incentives available for, say, you set up a manufacturing site and you're interested in investing in, say, solar panels or energy-efficient equipment. There are also incentives available for that. So it's kind of part of manufacturing, but it's a different aspect of it. Again, something we'll happily follow up with you with some information and explanation after this. I think that's it for questions for now. I do want to ask you viewers to please fill out the evaluation after this webinar. It's important for us to know, if we tick the boxes for you or if we can do anything better for any future events that we're hosting. So please do that. And then going out, I want to thank all our speakers today, Jan, Gunar, Hanneke, and Maurits. It was a pleasure to host you here. Thank you very much for your valuable insights, and we look forward to staying in touch with you in the future. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.